Good evening, everybody. Today we are very honored to have with us Mrs. Rivka Recht, who is from Lifeline. She's got a number of degrees. Really appreciate her time. And of course, everybody hopefully saw in the email with all of the details. And I really appreciate that she's taken the time to share her expertise with us. So thank you. Welcome to our Zoom. Appreciate your time. And of course, everybody, the four of our mind is all about what's going on in Eretz Yisrael, and sadly, what also is also going on here in the United States. And our kids, as well as ourselves, but we sometimes worry more about our kids. They hear about it; they can't be kept isolated or secreted from it. So we're turning to you. And first of all, again, thank you. And if you would please take a moment just to introduce yourself and share a little bit about your expertise and help us with how can we keep the situation appropriately in the four of our family's life and not that it should frighten us and scare us.
Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi Epstein, for inviting me on behalf of Lifeline. So I work as the case manager supervisor for Lifeline Midwest, and I also head their crisis department. And thank you. I see some of my crisis team members on as well, which I appreciate. Thank you for coming. Lifeline services children with pediatric illness, more severe illness, so ranging from cancer, heart, lung, kidney, and the gamut of difficulties that come along with having a child, a sibling. We try to service the entire family, programs for the client, programs for the siblings, programs for the parents. And as the supervisor, I manage my team of case managers, as well as take on the more crisis level things. I had the crisis department. And one of the things, obviously something like, God forbid, a car accident would be a crisis, and other similar kinds of things like that. And then since the start of the war, we have sort of launched the war in our crisis department. I keep getting phone calls to speak to schools, shuls, communities, parent bodies of various organizations or schools, students. So the war, which clearly is a international global crisis, has also fallen under our department as well. And when I start speaking particularly on this topic, I like to say that I am not all-knowing. I don't have all the answers. I have a lot of experience, and I've run a lot of groups. So I did see Rabbi Epstein said we could open it up for questions, so definitely open to that as well. And I like to start by saying that this war affects everybody. There is no one who is untouched by this war. There is no one who is unharmed by this war emotionally, physically. Everyone, and someone said to me, but I don't have family in Israel. Everyone has family in Israel. I personally have 3 sisters who live there, aunts and uncles who live there, first cousins who are driving tanks into Gaza. I have a tremendous amount of family, but even if I didn't, all Jews are brothers and sisters, and we are all connected. And what I think Rabbi Epstein touched on a little bit in the beginning is, and it's not a war that is contained to Israel at all. It is not a war against Israel. It is a war against Jews. And Jews are being targeted in every city, in every state, in every country. Jews are being targeted, the likes of which I don't think we've seen in mass, in such a great abundance since the time of the Holocaust. 1 second, I lost my video here. Okay, and my screen bigger. So it's a war that is affecting us, and there's no one who can say I'm not affected by it. And I want to backtrack just to my starting point where we said, Rabbi Epstein said, how we speak to children, and I'm happy to speak about that. I like to start by speaking about ourselves, because I feel that if we want to properly help our children, which I think is an important thing to do, and I think that we all can help our children, I think that we first need to be able to address our own concerns, our own fears, in order to process it better, in order to help our children. And I'll give you an example of what that looks like if we don't process our own. So if we don't have a good handle on what we should be hearing, listening to, and then our children will come home and say, someone in my class told me, and then they will proceed to say some horrific fact that may very well be true. But if you haven't been in a space where you can process what's going on, then immediately your first reaction is going to be an emotional one. So you're going to say something like, that's terrible, who told you that? Or don't believe everything you hear, or I don't want people telling you that, right? So it is more effective, so we can get to what we talk to our children, and a large bulk of what I've done till now is educate schools and parent bodies on how to speak to their children. But I want to move back a little bit and speak about what this war means to us, how this war is affecting us. I said to my husband the other night, I said, how are we gonna recover from this? What's the other side of this gonna look like? We're still very much in it, and that's important to realize that sometimes, especially in the crisis department, I deal with trauma, PTSD, post-traumatic stress, right? The after effects of car accident, God forbid, or something. Last year I flew to Cleveland to deal with the plane crash, and I come in after trauma, and of course there's still an element of trauma happening when I come in. Here, the trauma is very much in middle, and I think part of the trauma that I'm hearing now in this sort of like second wave, my crisis team members could tell you it was sort of quiet, and suddenly we're getting a lot of calls again, is that I think up until a certain point, people believed that it would end, it would be over, and then we would deal with the aftermath. But it's not ending yet, and please God, it will end very soon, but it isn't over. And since it isn't over, and in fact, there's increasing rates of anti-Semitism all over the world, there's a new awareness of we are in this war, we are in this crisis, we are in this trauma now. What do we do when we are in it? And what I want everyone to appreciate for 1 minute is that it is very difficult to process a trauma as it is happening. So it's important to realize that the trauma is still happening now. The crisis is still ongoing. There is still anti-Semitism being rampant all over the world, and we're trying to process something that is ongoing. And so my first piece of wisdom that I like to share, which is something I try to hold on to, is we need to be kind to ourselves. We need to realize that there's a war going on that affects us deeply, that is still going on. This isn't the same as when our teachers taught us about the Holocaust. That happened. This is happening to people that we know, the people that we care about, or I want to say as a Jewish nation, people that we are getting to know. I don't know how many of you have seen, but all over the world, we just had it here in Chicago, in the park by Skokie, people setting these Shabbos tables, these beautiful empty tables, when putting pictures of each hostage on each chair. And this was started first in Tel Aviv. That was where they made the first table to show our deep sorrow and love for these people who are held in captivity. And it has been copied all over the world, in New York, in Times Square, Manhattan, and this past weekend, Chicago had it set as well. And I find it's a tremendous love of people that most of us don't know. I don't know them, but how much we care about these people and we feel for these people. And as people who have, many of us are parents, thank God, blessed to be parents and spouses, to be able to envision the pain of someone's spouse and child and grandchild. And so with this first point, I just like to, sometimes I don't want people to think I lost my thread, with this first point of realizing that this is an ongoing trauma and to be kind to ourselves, is to also realize the greatness of what the Jewish nation is going through right now. That suddenly you have all sorts of different, I always say Judaism is a spectrum, and I do a lot of cultural trainings, and I always put in hospitals to let them know about like our clients, and I always, when I do my trainings, I always say, a Jew doesn't look like me. A Jew can look like me, but there's so many ways a Jew can look. I'm always hesitant that the hospital is going to think that this is what a Jew looks like. And then when we try to service a different Jew who looks different, they're going to say, well, that Jew doesn't look like Rivka Recht, so then they're not really Jewish. So I always try to explain to them, there's so many different types of Jews, and we may all look very different. And I think up until the war, there's been more of a separation. And so one of the things that's been helping me personally, as we talk about, just going back to my first point, that we're in the process of processing this right now, that this is an ongoing trauma. So we have to find things that can help us get through every day. And that's what I'm coming back to. One of the things that helps me, and again, I'm just sharing things that I've shared with other people that help me, is realizing that the war is doing terrible things to the Jewish nation. It is also doing some very interesting things. It is bringing people together in Jews all over the world, Jews of that whole spectrum that I just described, coming together in a way that really they haven't been together. In fact, more lately, there's been more separation and more, let's say, hating on groups. And really, we're such a small nation, there's no room for hate. There's really only room for building bridges and love. And I think something like that Shabbos table that I described before is a tremendous bridge where you have Jews of all different stripes walking around there, feeling for these people and their families, and realizing that at the end of the day, those people are being targeted as Jews as much as we are being targeted as Jews. And it is not the religious Jews being targeted, it is all Jews all over the world. And it's a very old story, which is something else, another point. So the first point I made was to find some of the beauty, find some of the care, and the more, just to add one point to that, is also to look out for all of what we call chesed and the kindness, all the, every email I open or WhatsApp text where we're trying to send 400 bulletproof vests to Israel, and we're collecting. One of my first cousins was collecting like rain gear for his battalion, and he sent us an Amazon link, and each rain suit was $50, and just the amount, like within a matter of minutes, we have a large family WhatsApp group. Within a matter of minutes, he said, "Okay, we don't need any more rain gear." Like, and it's amazing because he's the only one that we know in that group. So to think of all the chesed, the kindness. And again, I just like to repeat because I know I talk quickly, so I don't, if someone has a question, please interrupt me. But I spoke about, seeing how the Jews are bridging together, seeing all the chesed, the kindness that we are extending to one another, to see the different groups coming together, and to know that they are the anti-Semites in the world, and Hamas, they are out to destroy the Jews. And as a nation, we have never been stronger. And I really believe that we are coming together in a way that we're a force to be reckoned with. They're trying to make us feel sad. They're trying to make us feel depressed. They're trying to make us feel that we can't function. And there are days where I know I wake up and feel like this is too much, it's too heavy. But what I tell myself to get myself through this is to realize that would be them winning. They want us to give up. They want us to feel sad. They want us to feel that they are winning and that there's no way out of this dark tunnel. But the truth about tunnels is there's always a light at the end. It's something that we're passing through, and they want us to give up, and us kicking back and fighting back, physically, spiritually, coming together, supporting each other, is really us not letting them win. And that's very important to me. It's very important to me to feel that we're not letting them win, that they want us to give up. They want us to, I said to my husband the other night, what do you think would have happened if planes and planes of people would have landed in Germany? Like, what would have happened? Only Israel is a Jewish country at war, and and the flights are full. El Al is full. People are like, let's go to Israel to help the Jews. Jews are going, non-Jews are going. It's amazing. And I wonder if, I'm sure still many lives would have been lost, but I wonder if we would have lost less, if we would have banded together that if we would have had the opportunity, it could be worldwide, it wasn't possible. But here to know that we aren't leaving Israel, we aren't saying like, too bad on you. There's still planes going, people supporting each other, showing everyone that is out to destroy the Jewish nation that we are coming together. And it's a very, very powerful thing to realize, and it's very important before we think about giving this over to our children to realize that they are trying to do something that in history has been tried again and again. I told my own children, I said, look at the Jewish calendar. Every holiday we celebrate, the time when some version of the non-Jews tried to destroy us, and God saved us. It wasn't because we were so mighty and powerful. It wasn't because we had a better war. The upcoming holiday, Hanukkah, which is the one I was telling my kids about, was many mighty Greeks in the hands of very few Jews. And we don't need to be mighty. We have God on our side. So I told my kids, this has happened before. We celebrate it every year. We celebrate Hanukkah. We celebrate Purim. We celebrate every time they tried to destroy us, and we came out victorious. And there were many more times that aren't even on the Jewish calendar. God has always been on our side. Where are the Romans today? Where are the Greeks today? I know where the Jews are, but we're here. And it's very important that we feel empowered, that we feel that we are able to get through this. With God's help, we will get through this. That being said, I'm trying to be mindful of time. I do want to say that there still is, as a licensed professional counselor, there still is a part of me that knows that with all that strength and knowledge that we are a strong nation, and we are getting stronger every day. Even as they try to kill us out, we are getting stronger. There still is an awareness that this is very emotionally taxing. And again, I'm still talking about us, that is taxing on our mental health, on our emotional state, on our relationships, whether it's your relationship as a child to parents, a relationship as a sibling, a relationship as a spouse, as a wife or a husband, a relationship as a mother or a father, that there's so much we're trying to process. I told you it's an ongoing trauma, and we're trying to process this at the same time that we try to be a good wife or be a good mother. And also, a point that came up today that someone spoke to me about is, and also that life goes on. So we're processing this huge thing, but then also your son has a dentist appointment. And also, I know for my kids' school, PTA is next week. And PTA, or a dentist appointment, kind of feels mundane in the light of a huge world crisis going on. But at the end of the day, I still want to be a good mother and take my son to his dentist appointment. And it's a little incongruous, and it can make someone feel like, should I be doing that? Or so the crisis itself is a huge strain on daily life and on our relationships in every area. And I think it's important to also realize that emotionally we're also much more fragile. We're more emotional. We are more we feel more sad. I think we also as a nation feel more deeply. So it's really an awareness that you are going through a lot now. And we can't say, well, just close your eyes and it's not happening. We know it's happening. So it's more important to say, well, then how do we process that? How do we help ourselves emotionally go through this while also trying to lead a regular life? So I'm going to talk about that. I just want to check with Rabbi Epstein. You told me I have like 20, 25 minutes. So
we're listening to every word, and we appreciate your time. So we're soaking in your wisdom and your guidance. And if anybody wants to jump in for a minute and unmute and ask a quick to the point question, we'll allow that too. But please, I mean, we have people who have mentioned that there are kids who are like afraid to go to school. And how we regulate the information, because everybody has access to all information, and we want to know what's going on, but then we don't want to know what's going on. And if you could give us maybe some very tangible, practical guidelines that parents or could use for ourselves, with our children,
Right.
with ourselves. What's considered an appropriate thing to be informed and not to be consumed?
Not too much. Right. So a woman told me a great line. She was someone who was at one of my talks, and I really appreciated it. She said that after she heard me speak, she's trying to, even the inspirational videos, she was talking about like these, everyone keeps sending videos. She said even the inspirational videos she's trying to limit, because those are almost the most dangerous, because sometimes during an inspirational song or talk, they'll show flashes to some really horrific things. And so just to backtrack what she was going off of, again, I think it's important to start with ourselves and then to role model that for our children. And we could even explain it to our children. It's only going to work if we role model it. One of the best parenting quotes I ever heard, not particular to the war, but will stand us here as well in good stead, is what you're doing speaks so loud, I can't hear what you're saying. So we can't tell our kids, get off social media or get off the computer or get off the internet or the news sites if that they see us continuously completely absorbed in that, because they will do as we do, not do as we say. So first, to speak for ourselves, and for ourselves it's very important. I think the word that Rabbi Epstein that you used is balance. There's a very important balance that we need to have, and that is the balance between needing to know and also wanting to know. Like there's a certain need, and there's also a certain want, and there's a certain need to know where the hostages freed. We're davening, we're praying so much for them, we're so worried about them, and then there is this all-encompassing, all-consuming need to keep checking for updates and to keep checking every video that comes in and every speech that seems inspiring and every music that comes out. So I think it's very important. I think this in general, and before the war I had a whole speech on how much social media people should be absorbed in, but especially now to realize that this will directly impact our mental health. With how much. So I want to start by saying we need to be connected. It doesn't service us to just close our eyes and say, I'm not going to look at anything. We will still be worried. And also we need to care. We need to care and we need to know. And I think that's important. But I think the balance is so important. So I don't think she's on tonight. I could do a quick check, but she's making a wedding. But Aviva Valensky, who's on our team, was at one of my talks, and she added a point. So I will quote her point, because since she said it, I told her it was a very good point to note that in the first, she said 10 minutes. I have taken liberty to say in the first half hour. If half hour feels too long to you, you can do 10 minutes. But in the first half hour, when you wake up, and in the last half hour before you go to sleep, your phone should be off. It should be off, your phone or your computer or your laptop or whatever your means of connecting, because it's very important that we start the day and end the day by grounding ourselves. If we go to sleep right after clicking off on the social media or on the videos, we are bound to dream about very difficult scenes. And if we start our day that way, we already program our mind to be in stress mode. So it's great to wake up. If you can say some prayers when you wake up, if you can daven a little, that's a great way. If that's not where you're at and you can listen to some calming music, maybe something calm, classical, something calming, if you can take a shower, if you can do anything that is not check your social media, check your news sites, check that. To do some grounding things, to do a mental health check. Did you wake up this morning feeling extra anxious? Just check in with yourself. You know your baseline. Do I feel extra anxious? You may want to wait a little bit longer. You may feel extra anxious by waiting. So Aviva again said 10 minutes. I think that half hour is really grounding. I myself have been trying to do that as well. Sometimes I find it so grounding that I will see a whole hour pass, and it's amazing. And then of course you want to check, do your check-ins short. Don't look for every news article. Don't look for every, if you could, one news site that, that has like a live blog is called Yeshiva World, and they'll have like some points. And if you could do a quick check there, and it's important to check and then sign off. This is going back to what I usually say about social media, to check a few things or check, let's say, in on people that you want to check in on from the night before. Those are important. And then it's important to move on with your day, if you have a job, to go to your job. If you're a stay-at-home mother, to go about your tasks that you do from home. I always say there's no such thing as a not working mother or a not working father. Everyone works, and it's just how we divide our day differently. And so I know the days that I don't go to the office, I still work very hard. So we're all in a constant state of working to focus on the jobs that we are busy with. It doesn't mean we don't care. It means that we have to take a mental step back and do the next things on our list, whether it's take someone to a dentist appointment, take ourselves to a doctor, take a parent to a doctor, do laundry, cook. And then in the middle of the day, if you want to do some kind of check-in, again, if you're feeling like you just want to have a middle of the day update, and towards the end of the day, but not that last half hour before you go to bed. Again, before you go to bed is a good time to say some prayers, to do some music, or take a relaxing bath or shower, or take a walk if you can. These days, I would encourage a walk in the daylight, not at night. But in general, to ground yourself in different ways that don't involve news sites, social media. Is the one thing that I pointed out that some people I feel like aren't totally aware of this is that anything you watch that was put out spiritually, like inspirational wise, and from organizations that you're familiar with and whatever, even those you should be careful with, because again, sometimes they flash to images without you even being aware that it's almost like in the background. But anything that you watch straight off of the internet, like that didn't come from a Jewish organization, let's say, different videos of the hostages, different videos of watching people being tortured, those videos are being put out by Hamas. They are not put out and their goal, they have one goal in those videos, and their goal is to instill terror. They want you to feel afraid. And if you know anything about the way social media works, is that if you post something and you get a lot of views, you actually could get paid for how many people. So if you get 5 million views, right? So those people are putting out videos that get 5 million, 10 million views. Those people are getting paid for their content. We do not want to support Hamas. We do not want to watch the videos that they are putting out. Number one, they want to instill terror in us, and the reality is that we will feel afraid because they are putting out horrible things that will scare us. Their goal is to scare us. We will also potentially be supporting them financially because they will get paid for the more views that they get. So it's very important that even if you do want to watch some inspirational things, and Aish.com is putting them out, or Chabad.org, or any of those organizations, that they're putting those out, and those are at least, whoever you're supporting there are at least Jewish good organizations that are out to hopefully comfort you or give you inspiration or support. Do not watch what Hamas is putting out. We are definitely not going to support them emotionally or financially. So it's very, very important. A few people have thanked me for this. They're like, I didn't even realize that's what but that is what we're doing, and that is their goal. Their goal is to scare us. And no one should ever, God forbid, hurt another person, and they should definitely never videotape hurting another person. So it is not something that we should go near. And that's very important. And I want to just backtrack one of the things. I feel like I lost my thread of drop with and I want to talk about the children, but just about the emotional regulation. Some of those things that I said are other good ways. So another good way is to write things down. And I always tell people, you don't have to write like Dear Diary. You can even just track it like to November 7th, 10 o'clock in the morning, feeling very anxious. Even if you put it to paper, you're tracking it for yourself. November 7th, 9:29 at night, feeling calmer. You might want to write what you did to feel calmer. Took a walk with a friend, drank a tea, And I know people like to drink coffee. Tea, non-caffeine tea is actually a great calming drink, and great to have at night, especially if it doesn't have caffeine, to have a warm drink, to read something, not something about the war, just to read something inspirational, or to read a novel, even a book, or something, or someone sent you a nice article, to try to find different ways, just again talking about finding different ways to regulate your emotions, to process your emotions, talking to a mentor, a rabbi, a teacher, a friend, having that ability to talk, and very important is having that ability to check in. I have a tremendous family in Israel. I told you we have this WhatsApp, and we're constantly saying, "Hi, Aunt Rivki, how are you doing? How are your kids? Hi," right? Check in with the people who live in Israel. It's a scary place to live now. And checking in with the people who live in America, it's also a scary place to live now. So, and having that awareness that we want to be checking in on each other. And again, sorry, I think I segued, but again, other ways to process emotions. So we spoke about writing, taking a calming bath, talking to a friend, talking to a mentor, crying. I know that one is difficult for people, but sometimes having a release of emotion that way is very healing. I do have a caveat that I added in the crisis when I work with crisis that I've put in here as well, and that is that if you are just crying, let's say you're lighting candles and you start to cry, that's okay. Your kids can see you shed some tears. They know there's a lot going on. You could even say, I'm praying for all the people, all the Jews all over the world. That's healing, that's learning. If a parent is going to have like a real breakdown, which could happen, just sobbing, I think it's a great release. It also is very scary for kids to see. So I tell people, just like there are different things that adults, they close their bedroom door, they lock their door. This is one of those. This goes in that category. If you're going to have a real breakdown, which could happen, and you should have one, that would be something you do away from your children in a locked room, and you just explain to your kids, if you have a spouse around, you could say, I need a few minutes. If you have an older child who could hold down the fort, and just the same way a parent might excuse themselves because they have to take care of something, or make a phone call, that's the same concept. You go to your room, you lock your door, and then if you could try to wash your face before you come down, compose yourself a little more. Even if they sense that you were crying, again, that's okay. But to watch a parent have a breakdown like that is just a very unsafe feeling. We want to try to increase the safety of our children. And I want to talk about that. I'll just talk about that for like a few minutes, and let's see if we can take questions. So what Rabbi Epstein mentioned before, that kids are feeling a lot of fear. A lot of it is our fear that they are feeling. A lot of it is their own fear, especially the older they get, the more they have access to their own means of social media and of internet and of news sites. So definitely it's not only our fear, it's also what they are seeing and hearing, which is the same stuff that is making us feel afraid and is real and valid. These aren't, these aren't made up fears. So again, let's backtrack. The best thing we could do is role model. And it's very important to have very clear and open communication. I'm going to say with your children, but I'm going to say with your entire family. So this could be a parent, a spouse, a child, a sibling, as clear and open communication. Specifically, a parent can say to a child, tell me what you're hearing. What are you hearing? Because there's what we tell them, there's what they see on their own, and then there's what their friend in school told them. And we want to try as much as possible. We can't control people. We want to just hear what they're hearing. Did you hear anything in school today? What are you hearing? Because then at least we could see a little bit where their fears are coming from. They might tell you something they read, something they saw, something they heard. And as much as possible, we want to role model this. So we're going to validate, which again, we could do for ourselves as well. We're going to validate, it's so horrible what you're hearing. It's so scary what you're hearing. Let's say they say, I'll just use what Rabbi Epstein said before, I don't feel safe leaving the house. So we want to validate that. It's so scary. These are scary times. We don't want to say, don't worry about it. Nothing's going to happen. They're not stupid. And if they feel that something may happen, maybe because they heard that something happened. And maybe not only in Israel. So we want to try to say, what could we do that would help you feel safer when you go out? So being a pretty, I'm definitely a safety mom. So I've always been pretty careful with the kids, but I'm pretty relaxed. Let's say in general, my kids can go to friends and they can walk around. A lot of my kids are older, so they can go to friends alone, but they know that now since the war started, that they can't just walk around at night alone, right? And they have to walk in groups. So you're going to ask your kids, what can we do to help you feel safer as you go out? We're not going to walk alone at night. That's going to be scary for them. But could they go to a friend in the day? Do you want to walk in a group? Do you want to walk to school in a group? It may be that parents have to drive their kids more than they used to help them. But we want to role model resilience. We don't want to role model, let's just lock our doors and stay inside. Again, that empowers those that are out to destroy us. Because I think we all had quite a lot of experience by COVID. There's a limit to how long we can, with our sanity intact, stay home with our families as much as we love them. So we don't want to do that. We want to role model healthy living. So I want you to go out. I want to go out. What's a great safe way for us to go out? So yes, you're not going to take long walks alone at night. That doesn't feel safe right now. But if you can take a walk in the day with your friends, that's great. Do that. And which area, which neighborhood? If that's not a good neighborhood, we're not going to go there. But there are other neighborhoods we could walk on. We could drive to a safer, spot and take a walk there. So we want to role model very mindful safety practices while still trying to go about our regular daily schedule. So, and talk it out with your kids. Say, I hear you, that feels scary, so you don't want to walk there at night. Would it be okay if I drove you there? We still want to encourage that they go to their friend's house or a school, function or event, that as parents we're still going to their parent-teacher conferences and their appointments as much as possible, and talk it out with them. Say it's important to us that everyone who's out to really, destroy the Jewish people, it's important to us that we keep living our life, that we're going to keep going about. They want to make us cower in fear, and we're not going to be afraid. We're just going to be smart about where we go and how we get there. And we'll go in groups. And also, I'd like to leave a little room for people. There is this concept of generational trauma, like by the Holocaust, some Jews hid their Judaism and some people flaunted their Judaism. I like for people to have their own individual way. I heard someone say the other day, like, everyone should put an Israeli flag on their lawn. I think if that's how you feel, that works for you. And if someone else feels that's dangerous and why should we incite people or it's making us a target, then you shouldn't put it. You should do things that you feel comfortable with. I don't think there's one right way. I don't think everyone putting an Israeli flag on their lawn is the right way, or everyone not putting an Israeli flag on their lawn. I think everyone should leave room to go through this process in a way that feels safe to you. And you shouldn't feel pressure either way to yes, but not put. I think every person should do what feels safe and comfortable to them, and to role model that to their kids. I am going to go to my job and I am going to work, but I used to take these streets and now I take those streets because those streets feel safer to me. And to role model that to your kids and to keep the conversation flowing. The scariest thing for kids to feel is that this is very scary for me and I can't tell my mother because she's going to freak out or she's going to be worried for me, or that I can tell my parent anything and we can discuss it, and that's the safest way. And to not minimize at all how much this open communication is going to mean for their mental health and their feelings of safety. And the last piece I like to say is a little bit more on the spiritual end, but it's to not
No, please.
The last piece is just on a little bit more on the spiritual end. Every time I hear someone say there's nothing we can do, I, with my full heart, do not believe that. Every prayer helps. We should pray for the hostages. We should pray for the Jews in Israel. We should pray for the Jews in Chicago. We should pray for the Jews all over the world. We should pray that as fast as this war started, as we have seen in the past, God has a good standing, right? That he should end this war, that the Jews should emerge safe and the hostages return home, and that we should emerge victorious. We should not stop believing that every prayer that we utter, every kindness, chesed, act, good deed that we do matters, and that we are making a tremendous difference. We are not making a small difference. There have been other wars. There most recently was a war with Russia. There have been really lives and people really hurt and tortured, and the Jews are not going down. We are fighting back physically and spiritually, and to know that everything we do makes a tremendous difference, and we make a difference, and you make a difference. And no one should go to sleep believing that any prayer goes unanswered or any good deed unnoticed. God notices everything, and we're just waiting for him to show us how we're going to get out. And we may think it's one way, and he's going to show us another way, and we should leave ourselves open for that possible miracle. I know I was looking at my calendar before, and my calendar, my phone, I have also the Hebrew dates. And when I saw Kislev, which is the next Hebrew month, I said, that is such a good thing, because Kislev is a month of miracles, and Kislev is a month where Hanukkah happened. And I was like, this is a good sign for us. It's a good month, and I hope the war will end before Kislev starts, but that we can't stop believing that God will do a miracle for us and will help us through in a way that we can't even envision. So we have to hang in there and hold on to our faith and keep helping each other. And I think that's really the most powerful thing we can do.
Man, wow. That is so much, Mrs. Recht. Thank you. Thank you so much. If anybody wants to, we really want to be respectful of our guest time. So if you have a real, like, to the point, brief question and you want to unmute for a question, otherwise we're going to say thank you. And somebody got a question they want to jump in, please do so. Otherwise, we're just going to say thank you. Thank you for all that you do and all that Chai Lifeline does throughout the year. Sadly, this is just another example of the necessity for your work and for your kindness and your patience and your wisdom. And we truly, truly appreciate you spending this time with us. And as you said, Hashem should comfort the mourners, heal the injured, and return the captives speedily. And we should have really the end of all war with the coming of Mashiach. So thank you so much for your time. And thank you for sharing with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you,
everyone,
for listening.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.